What is up, coordinators and naturals? I am just a simple new type. And in this episode, we are returning to Cosmic Era 71 as we start our coverage of Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Astray B. This is a light novel, and the first novel that we are covering on this channel, so we will see how it goes. Since it is a novel, I will try to paint a visual picture with content from the anime and the manga. In this episode, we will be introduced to Serpent Tail. Guy will obtain the blue frame, and he will test it out for the first time in battle. So let's get into this. We start with the prologue titled Jess's Report. It is a report on Serpent Tail by Jess Rabel, meaning Jess Rabel was a character planned far before he became a main character. Jess says that most people view mercs as simply hands for hire, but he tries to take a different point of view on this one. Although mercenaries work for money, their work history shows that they fight for the common man more so than the actual military. He introduces everyone to Serpent Tail, which we all love and know by now, but we learn some new things. Guy is relatively quiet and reserved outside of his missions and rarely shows his emotions. Elijah is known to the world as the one who defeated Gudvayar. We learn that he is the genetic basis for the Socius clone, and we will dive more into it in this light novel. However, Jess notes that there is something off about his death, and Elijah is quiet about the incident. The assumptions about Reed Weller constantly being drunk are confirmed here, but even while drunk, he is extremely sharp. Loretta Azure helps with planning, and her daughter Kazahana is only 10, but functions no differently than the other adults on the team. Jess tried his best to collect the truth about Serpent Tail. He asks his readers to see the truth and judge for themselves. One thing to note is that the original release or operations wasn't in chronological order, but when released, known as Tactics, it was arranged in chronological order. I will be going in the re-release order, but will say the chapter number for each. This is Tactics 01 or Operation 13, titled Guy's Jin. The team is taking on a mission for a private company which worked in transporting goods from space. Zaft started building 4 supply stations. Because of this, the military bullied them out of the sector. Guy decides to take on the job, but he wants them to prepare a customized Jin for him. Later, Serpent Tail begins their attack. All chaos breaks loose. They are using neutron jammers, making radar useless. Remember, in-jammers in the Cosmic Era are like Minovsky particle dispersion in UC. Guy is in his custom Jin. We talked about Guy's Jin in Astray B, but to quickly summarize, before getting the blue frame, he used to dispose of mobile suits for each mission. He likes to wipe his hands clean. Zaft realizes that they have no motherships. They refer to these units as ghosts. Guy's goal is to create chaos, but not engage in actual battle. He has to get in and get out quick. Elijah watches on stunned at how fast Guy moves. In his words, he says, "I'll just have to pray that none of the enemies are capable of catching up to him." One just so happens to be able to keep pace with Guy. It happens to be an orange Jin. If you remember from our coverage of CE71, Miguel is a part of the La Crusette team and the first person that Kida Yamato kills. He is also voiced by TM Revolution. Miguel introduces himself to Guy. He has heard of his name and knows that he is with the La Crusette team. He's going to have to engage in battle, unfortunately. The two go in for a singular attack, like a duel. Guy is able to take out Miguel's arm, but Miguel penetrated Guy's cockpit. Miguel yells, "I win." Guy opens the cockpit and bails. He sarcastically says, "Yeah, I guess you win." Guy's Jin is on a collision course directly towards the Xeon generator. When Miguel realizes this, it is too late. Guy's Jin crashes and explodes the generator. Serpent Tail completes their mission. When drifting in space, it is near impossible to shoot a human. He calms himself and controls his breathing to save oxygen. Once the fight dies down, Xeon leaves. Guy waits for it to be quiet before calling his teammates for a pickup. Tactics 2, Operation 6. Goldframe. As the war continues, the people of Heliopolis will have the world turned inside out. Chaos is taking place in the colony as it is being attacked. The people of Morganrot are trying to secure the gold, red, and blue frame. One man helping out is dressed in black, is wearing a helmet, and commanding all the Morganrot engineers. They have access to Dual Gundam's bazooka and might need to use it to blast their way out. They start copying data from the 3 machines, but the man dressed in black climbs aboard the gold frame. Just like Kida in the 2nd episode of Gundam Seed, as the gold frame boots up, he takes out the keyboard and begins calibrating the operating system to his needs. He types with speeds that no natural can keep up with. He completes the calibration and closes the cockpit while doing the mobile suit equivalent of revving up the engine. In previous episodes, we talked about the authentication process when using a weapon. A mobile suit's hand is like a USB drive. It has to go through with a handshake and authenticate before actually connecting. A mobile suit's hand is like a USB connection to a weapon. It has to follow all the protocols before being able to use the weapon. Because of this, an Alliance mobile suit just can't pick up a Zaft mobile suit weapon and begin using it. It wouldn't be able to authenticate. Goldframe, as well as the other P units, have a special plug that allows them to use Zaft and Alliance weapons, mainly used for testing purposes. This allows the Goldframe to use the dual Gundam's bazooka. The man aims up and tells everyone to move out of the way. He doesn't give too much time though and immediately blasts a hole through the ceiling. He flies off and tells the Morgenrot engineers to launch blue and red when they are ready. We learn that Zaft has learned that Heliopolis has been working with the Alliance to create a new line of mobile suits. The man recognizes Heliopolis' position in Orb. While working with the Alliance, Orb stole the data to create their own Astray line of mobile suits. This attack currently puts them in a situation that could make Orb enemies of both Zaft and the Alliance. But he says that the Astray program is designed to give the people of Orb power, at least enough power to fight back when their neutrality is at stake. But out of fear, Orb planned on destroying the Astray project. But the mysterious man plans on ignoring those orders and taking the units in secret. The attack has begun on Heliopolis. They must get P1 and P2 out of there fast, but it is looking grim. The Goldframe must get out of there now. However, the right arm suddenly begins short-circuiting. The man wonders if it is because they fired off an Alliance weapon with a non-Alliance mobile suit. His adapter is supposed to allow them to use Alliance weapons, but they never actually tested it. It could have been corrupted by the Alliance. But there isn't really any time to test this theory. He whips out the keyboard once again and begins programming. He detaches the right arm to prevent the corruption from spreading to the rest of the mobile suit and then makes his escape. As he makes his escape, he runs into a Mobius mobile armor. He knows of the Goldframe, which means that he is aware that these units are to be destroyed. The Mobius tells him to hand over the Goldframe immediately. The man says, to think that just because you're righteous, I would simply obey your commands. So this is the state of Orb Motherland today. In reality, this world isn't a place where such naive logic would be accepted. Just because you're righteous doesn't mean you'll be able to survive. He's more concerned over the current state of Orb than obeying orders from these people. He takes out his beam saber and destroys the Mobius. We learn that this man is none other than Rondo Gina Sahaku. As he leaves Heliopolis, both the Jump Guild and Serpent Tail make their way towards the wreckage. Tactics 3, Operation 19, Serpent Tail with Earth Alliance. There was a satellite that was once operated by the Alliance, but Zaft has taken control of it during a battle. They intend to transport the satellite from the L4 point to the L5 point and plan on converting it to a military base to help defend the plants. It was originally a mining satellite. Even though it is now useless to the Alliance as a mining resource, they still don't want it in the hands of Zaft and are making plans to retake the satellite. Their attempts failed because it was well fortified by mobile suits. Elijah doesn't understand why the Alliance wants to hire them for this mission. Is it just because they have mobile suits and they don't? It still doesn't make them superior simply because of mobile suits. Guy is blunt with Elijah and says it has nothing to do with mobile suits. The Alliance simply doesn't want any more of their own men dying trying to retake the base. The Alliance thinks they are expendable because they are mercs. Guy doesn't really seem to mind because this will give him a good opportunity to test out the blue frame. Like Gundam Seed Astray R, Astray B is filling in the gaps of what happened in between the original Gundam Seed Astray manga. To see how Guy obtained the blue frame, be sure to check out our complete coverage of the Astray manga. Nova is still in the process of being transported from L4 to L5. They hop on an Alliance ship and head towards their next mission. They head out towards the enemy and begin their battle. Elijah is rocking his Elijah's Jin. Not too long after the battle begins, Guy realizes that his power is draining really fast. His weapons are powerful, but if he isn't careful, he will be a floating brick soon. He starts using his Engelstellung, which is what they call Sea Whiz in the Cosmic Era. He immobilizes a Jin and then finishes the job with the beam rifle, but he is now out of energy and the rifle is useless. Another Jin approaches. He fires the Engelstellung and then rushes in with his Schneider combat knife. He attacks and knocks the bazooka out of the Jin's hand. He takes the bazooka and stabs the Jin. Another Jin rushes in and Guy swiftly uses the bazooka and takes it out. He is really liking the bazooka. As he is fighting, he starts to brainstorm ways to upgrade the blue frame to make it a better mobile suit. The battle waged on, but in the end, Guy went up against Mikhail Coast, aka the Doctor, and a high mobility type Jin. In the end, the mission is a failure, but that is a story for another time. Tactics 4, Operation 1, Beam Rifle. Guy, in the blue frame, enters into the asteroid. It has been mined out and now full of military facilities. They only have 10 minutes to complete this mission, or they will be overran and forced to retreat. He has to move fast. Since he is in 0G, he kicks off the walls to guide him through the asteroid instead of using propellant. He finds the generator and shoots it with his beam rifle. Like Universal Century, beam weapons on mobile suits weren't common. Unlike UC, that changes so quickly, and Cosmic Era says, hold my beer, I'm adding all the beam weapons. Guy rushes out to the meteor, not looking back. Never look back at explosions. Tactics 5, Operation 3, Complete Sensor. Reed tells Guy about a mission involving an invisible mobile suit. The Alliance has created something that can't be seen by the naked eye, and Zaf stole it. This mission intrigues Guy. Reed works with an Alliance member that was a former comrade before he became a merc. He usually handles the dealings because he is good at judging loss prevention. As mercs, you have to pay for your own mobile suits. They need to be able to have good judgment on whether a mission's rewards will be worth the losses. This mission will be a complete loss, but doing this will build relations with a well-known weapons developer that can take the data from the Blue Frame and finish the Gundam, as it wasn't complete before the destruction of Heliopolis. Upgrading the Blue Frame is worth the loss. Luckily, they will build the parts before the mission, which will come in handy against an invisible enemy. We cut in media res to the battle. Elijah and Loretta are being attacked. Loretta wants to come save him, but he doesn't want anyone to risk it. His mobile suit is in critical condition. Loretta is in the mothership, which I believe is the Laurasia class. The Laurasia class is a space-class frigate and one of Zaf's first warships during a time when mobile suits were only theoretical. It is designed to be a ship-to-ship combat vessel. The egg-shaped pod at the bottom of the ship is a retrofitted extension that allows the ship to carry 6 mobile suits using a retractable catapult. This can also be detached from the ship and function as an atmospheric re-entry pod. Weapons include a 937mm dual high energy cannon, a 450mm dual railgun, a 450 single railgun, and 58mm Sea Whiz. It is clear an invisible enemy is attacking him. They need to survive and relay this data to Guy. Its big weapons lowers its mobility. Elijah reports back to Guy as they put the finishing touches on the Blue Frame. The V-fin has been removed on the Gundam, but its communication sensors have been greatly enhanced. These extra sensors, however, consume more energy. The finished touches are done, and Guy launches to complete the mission. Guy heads to the location where Elijah was attacked. Typically, a mobile armor couldn't compete with a mobile suit. This has one advantage: Mirage Colloid tech. Guy heads to the outskirts of the shoal zone and activates his new complete sensor. He puts in inputs into the computer and it gives Guy a target. He fires, taking out the mysterious Mirage Colloid mobile armor. I assume it is just a prototype Mobius with Mirage Colloid, but it never says what the mobile armor is. When he gets back, Loretta asks Guy how he knew. He tells her that Elijah mentioned that there were asteroids disappearing. It was subtle, but Elijah noticed. Mirage Colloid works by spreading particles over the mobile suit. Some of these particles get onto the debris when in a debris field. Using the complete sensor, the computer was able to spot these subtle changes in debris no problem, allowing Guy to spot the enemy. Tactic 6, Operation 2, High Speed Booster. Guy looks at the Blue Frame as if this is some kind of joke. Attached to the Blue Frame is a booster twice as big as the mobile suit itself. One thing we learn is that the Astray's backpack is located on the butt of the mobile suit. This allows the unit to add extra equipment on top of its loadouts. This makes the Astray backpack system more versatile than the Striker packs. Their mission was to retrieve data from a corporation's unmanned experimental vessel. It is a rogue vehicle that has been flown out into space. Guy must retrieve the data for their client. It is currently in an orbital elliptical around the sun. Guy only has one shot to catch up to the vessel. After it slingshots once, it'll be impossible for any craft to catch up to it. We cut to Guy waking up to alarms going off. He passed out while accelerating due to all the G's to the face. His vision is blurry. Guy does something he rarely ever does. He takes off his glasses. With the precision of a coordinator, Guy carefully aligns himself with the vessel and attaches the mobile suit. He connects to the main computer and begins extracting the data. It takes only 2 minutes. Guy detaches from the vehicle. The random vessel drifts off, where no man would ever see it again. However, that isn't true, as a certain junker we all know will come across it. Tactic 7, Operation 9, Vaer versus Elijah. Good Vaer is in his red Jin. The ZGMF 1017 Vaer's Jin is a modified custom Jin designed for Good Vaer. It has general upgraded performance, a red paint job, and modified shoulders. It is equipped with the MA M3 heavy blade for close combat and looks like a European broadsword. It also has the 67mm heavy assault machine gun and a shoulder shield. Elijah was sent to pursue him. The once Zaf soldier escaped to the neutral colony Lateria, and he sought peace after being a tool of war. Elijah and Good were once friends. Remember, Elijah is a coordinator by nationality, but he doesn't possess any of the innate skills that coordinators possess and was outcasted from the military. Good and Elijah bonded over being useless to the military. As the two battle in the present, Bayer likens being a coordinator to being more of a burden. Elijah not possessing those skills can can't relate. Nearby, Lo and the junk dealers are doing junk stuff. Elijah calms down Vaer for a moment, but their battle continues. Being the hero of Zaft split Vaer's personality into two, and his bloodthirsty side is coming out. Elijah tries to calm him down. Their battle comes to a close. Elijah survived and Vaer lost in battle. Elijah links up with Lo and the Junk Guild close by to help fix up his Jin. He uses the parts from Vaer's Jin to fix Elijah's, but he keeps the red color instead of painting over it to keep Vaer's legacy alive. Little does he know at this point that he is the basis for the Socius clones. Tactics 8, Operation 4, Gerbera Strait. The neutral colony Literia decides to move from the Shoal Zone to a location near Jupiter. Guy is here to investigate missing nuclear weapons. His client is currently the Earth Alliance. Since the invention of the neutron jammer, nukes have been rendered useless. So the Alliance planned on rounding them all up and throwing them into the sun, like the 4th Superman movie? However, some of the nukes have gone missing. Guy's mission is to find out where they are and why they were taken. Guy runs into Elijah, where he tells him of the situation with Vaer. He tells Guy that the colony was converted into a spaceship and the nukes were used as propulsion. Elijah answers the where and the why, so his mission is complete. They didn't ask to retrieve the nukes, so it's not his problem. The colony makes its way towards Jupiter. His client calls and asks them to help out around the colony as it makes its leave. He says, "Nah, I'm good," and he pieces out. Guy reaches out to the Junk Guild to see if they could help with Elijah's repairs. Guy meets up with Lo in the Red Frame. This takes place after their meeting at Artemis, which took place in the mainline Astray manga. Lo shows off his new sword, the Gerbera Strait. He says, "Check this out," and he slices through a piece of steel frame drifting out into space. A series of Mobius mobile armors come chasing after Lo and the Red Frame. Anxious to fight, Lo challenges Guy to see who could defeat the most mobile armors. Guy didn't really have a reason to accept the challenge, but he felt compelled to do so. Guy notes that Lo's katana is inefficient, but it sure does look cool. Lo ended up winning the challenge. Guy asked them if they could pick up Elijah and help fix his Jin. The two Astray mobile suits head to the Junker's ship, the Home. Tactics 9, Operation 5, Full Weapon. Things aren't looking good as Elijah and Guy are surrounded by 12 Jins. They are certainly all coordinators, so their chances are looking slim. But Guy is a merc, not a hero. He doesn't put himself into situations unless he could get himself out of it. We flash back to before the mission. Their client for this mission is the Earth Alliance. When the war began, Zaft attacked all mass driver systems on Earth to trap them on the planet. They weren't given too much intel on this mission. Reed wonders if they should turn the mission down. They don't even know if they are up against Jins or Bakus. Even though there is a gap in strength, Guy thinks they can handle it. Their biggest problem is the limit point. The limit point is the point in which they have to resupply and go on the defensive. Loretta mentions that they are mercs. They will handle it. Elijah isn't confident, but he doesn't show this to the team for fear of coming off weak. Back on the battlefield, Elijah is feeling calm while surrounded by 12 enemies, 3 more than expected. Guy is currently decked out in his full weapons loadout, which gives him a guided missile launcher, a 3-barrel short-range guided missile launcher, and a 500mm recoilless rifle. The mobile suits have a Mexican standoff. Elijah has no intention of making the first move. One Jin approaches him and he takes it out. He realizes that the remaining Jins are not firing because they are afraid of friendly fire and they are being filtered into a small area. Elijah uses the thrusters on his backpack and takes a flying knee to one of the Jin's face. He realizes what Loretta was getting at. The majority of pilots might be experienced, but rarely see combat, unlike mercs who are constantly in action. There is a skill gap, and Elijah is starting to see it. Guy was also going to town on the Jins. He runs out of energy and takes the Jin beam saber. Remember, the Astray units have the authentication features to unlock both Alliance and Zaft weapons. The two take out the Jins, completing their mission. They withdraw before reinforcements show up and meet with Reed in a transport vehicle. The two were right on the edge of their limit point. It was during this retreat that Guy met a particular journalist that would end up saving his life. But that is a story for another day. Tactics 10, Operations 20, Dreadnought. The mercs are going to help test a top-secret mobile suit for Zaft in their next mission. Normally, Guy wouldn't take on missions like this, but he did it because the client happens to be Siegel Klein, the current plant chairman before he got a bunch of holes in him. Klein personally chose him. He heads into space. The unit that Guy is help testing out is Gundam Dreadnought. This will eventually be used by Prayer Reverie, an ex-Astray. Based on the looks, Guy believes that it is Alliance-made. However, once he started fighting against it, he noticed notice that this might be the fastest mobile suit he has ever seen. Guy is borrowing a Gates. Is it Gates or Guaze? I forgot where we stand on this, so I'm going to say both for maximum confusion. As he fights, he notices the radars are working. There is something canceling the jammers in the area, which means that the Dreadnought is nuclear powered. CE-71 was so quaint before everyone started throwing nukes like crazy. The Dreadnought uses its Dragoon system. He tries his best to dodge, but he isn't in blue frame and can't maneuver to his fullest potential. His Gates gets hit. After the battle, one of Siegel's men gives him a disc. This is also the pilot of the Dreadnought. We will later learn that this is Courtney Hieronymus. However, the two don't give each other's names and keeps this transaction casual. It contains data on the Dreadnought along with future instructions. Siegel knows that the development of these nuclear-powered Gundams are illegal, and he has the power to shut them down, but he wants to know for certain if this is the right thing to do. There is an energy crisis on Earth because of the neutron jammers. Nuclear energy would help the Earth flourish. On the other hand, we may see another Bloody Valentine incident. Siegel wants Guy to look out for the Dreadnought to help him make a decision. Guy helps Siegel out, but not too long after, Siegel Klein would be murdered, but Guy keeps his promise and checks out on the Gundam. We know this will eventually fall into the hands of prayer. Tactics 11, Operation 7, M1 Astray Team. Guy is at Orb, meeting with Chief Orb Engineer Erika. She shows off their new M1 Astray units and mentions that thanks to the help of a certain young boy, they were able to get the natural-based OS up and running. Guy knows that she is talking about Kira Yamato. He hasn't met with the Lord and Savior personally, but stories are growing around the young genius. Also, it should be noted that Lo also got his hands on this unit as well. Kira was able to develop it and get it integrated, but they still need to do a lot of combat testing and can use Guy for this. They start testing on a remote island close to Orb. Since the Archangel made a visit, they have been on constant watch. They don't want the Alliance or Zaf to get wind of their new mobile suit just yet. He and Elijah are working with 3 girls in the M1 Astrays. They aren't named, but we know them as the Astray Girls, Yuri, Asagi, and Mayura. They are desperately struggling with the M1 as certain real-life edge cases start to become apparent in the OS. The M1 Astrays strike a pose every once in a while, and Guy wonders if Lo had his hands on this. Suddenly, an attack comes out of nowhere. It is 2 Bakus out in the distance. They can't let anyone know of these mobile suits. One Baku jumps into the air towards the blue frame. The Zaf pilot didn't expect Guy to jump towards him, and he slices the Baku in half. On the landing, he slices through the remaining Baku. This was all done with one relatively swift attack in a matter of mere seconds. They head back to Orb. Guy thinks that these units need to be better if they are going to carry out the Astray name. Tactics 12, Operation 20, Scale System. The Gigafloat is an artificial island built by the Alliance. This was built with the help of junk dealers like Lo. We see this in action in the main Astray manga. Zaft got wind of its construction. This was all done by accident, however, as one Den on a scouting mission changes its course to avoid a storm. Due to the secrecy of this project, the Alliance doesn't protect the Gigafloat and relies on mercenaries like Serpent's Tail to handle business. A goon begins attacking. Beam weapons are useless underwater. Luckily, Guy is using the scale loadout on his blue frame. The blue frame's scale system is designed for aquatic missions. It has tiny scales which vibrate to help propel the unit without the need for excessive thrusters. It can also deflect attacks from phonon maser cannons. This was built by Morganrot and Erika for helping out Orb with testing. The goon made a mistake assuming the blue frame was an aquatic mobile suit, but once the goon notices the mistake, it begins fleeing. Guy won't let it get away. He tells the goon until they eventually decide to fight. The goon fires its phonon maser cannon on the scales, and it is able to nullify the attack. It won't, however, work a second time, as it does some damage to the scales. He unleashes the Super Cavitating Torpedo Launcher. A Super Cavitating Torpedo is a torpedo wrapped in an air bubble that allows it to travel faster than the speed of sound, which means the attack will hit before the enemy will notice it on sonar. The goon has similar torpedoes and fires them. Guy's missiles connect, taking down the goon. He heads in the direction that the mobile suit was retreating towards. He finds a Vosgolov sub and takes it out. Tactics 13, Operation 11, Flight Unit. During this time, Zaft is trying to ground the Alliance by destroying their mass driver systems. Because of this, the Gigafloat began construction of their own mass driver system and spaceport. As the Gigafloat is controlled by the Junk Guild, they want to help give civilians better access to space. However, the military is going to try to use this for military purposes. Rather than protest and shut down shop, they decide to finish construction and deal with the military later. Since Guy took down the Vosgolov sub, they have moved locations, but they need to be on guard. That is what Guy and Serpent's Tail is here for. An alarm goes off. They have been discovered by Zaft. This time they attack from the air and sea. Guy takes care of the mobile suits underwater, while Elijah handles the ones in the air. Things are getting bad, so Lo launches in the Red Frame as well. During his recent visit to Orb, his unit was fitted with a flight unit. The Red Frame flight unit is a modified version of the M1 Astray's flight pack. The wings store fuel and can be detached. Also, with the help of 8, this can be detached and flown remotely. He whips out his Gerbera Straight and boosts towards the enemy Jins. He slices through one unit in a single slash. Lo then targets a goon which emerges from the sea. He slices the goon in 2. Another Jin approaches him on a Guru. The Guru is an unmanned subflight system for Zaft's mobile suits that can't fly in Earth's atmosphere. Looking at you, Jins and Zaku warriors. This unit is completely controlled by the mobile suit and can lift a 100-ton payload. The only weapons include a 6.2 missile launcher. Lo instantly shoots down the Zaft unit and subflight system. Eventually, Zaft made their escape. They are hiding the fact that they can't lose any remaining Zaft forces before Operation Spitbreak takes place. Eventually, Zaft stop their assault on the Gigaflute and focus their attention on other Alliance mass driver systems. Also, the Alliance would eventually reject the use of the Gigaflute, leaving it to the civilians. They would also go on to try to capture Kaguya, forcing Orb's hands, leaving Uzumi to sacrifice himself in the process. The Alliance completely forgot about the Gigaflute, and they eventually no longer knew of its location. Tactics 14, Operation 18, Salvage Type Red. They head back to the Gigaflute after fending it off from another attack by Zaft. After the battle, Lo wants to go out to help the people and pick up parts. He says that since the battle is over, they are no longer enemies. He asks for Guy's help, but he thinks it isn't a good idea. Lo heads underwater with his new salvage unit. This is an underwater attachment made from a goon. He has 2 manipulator arms that allows him to use the Gerbera Strait, which he will completely ignore. We discuss this unit in more detail during our coverage of Astray R, the counterpart manga to this light novel. Lo goes to work saving those who are still alive. He finds a mobile suit that is pinned underneath the wreckage. The salvage unit doesn't move well, and he needs his full range of motion. He rips off the salvage unit and slices through the wreckage, saving the mobile suit. However, once he was exposed without his underwater unit, water began pouring into the cockpit. He rushes back up towards the surface. He says that cleaning all the salt water is going to be a pain in the ass, but it was all worth it. Tactics 15, Operation 12, Long Dagger. The combat coordinator was originally an Alliance creation, and with it birthed the Socius clones. However, when war broke out, the Socius clones were supposed to be disposed of. 11 Socius makes his escape from an EA facility. He escapes in a Long Dagger. The GAT-01D Long Dagger is the opposite of the Strike Dagger, which was designed around natural use. The Long Dagger was made for the Alliance's combat coordinators, specifically the Socius clones, and inherits features from the dual Gundam. The Strike and Long Dagger share the majority of their parts and can work interchangeably. The Long Dagger has double the Sea-Wiz and beam sabers and uses the same beam rifle as dual Gundam. This unit can't mount any striker packs, but it can use the Fortestra utilized by dual Gundam. It has the speed of Blue Frame. Other weapons include the M703 57mm beam rifle, also used by the Strike Dagger, a shield, the 115mm linear cannon, and an 8-tube missile pod. This Socius lives with the insecurity of being declared useless and wants to prove himself, and decides to prove himself by defeating Guy and Serpent's Tail. Maybe then the military would consider him useful. No, they won't. He eventually runs into 7 Socius. In a city, the Socius clones run into Guy. The two engage in battle. Because the Blue Frame weighs about half of the average mobile suit, it makes Guy a speed demon. The clones set traps throughout the abandoned town. Guy needs to stop evading. Even at his speeds, the Long Dagger is somehow keeping up. Guy realizes that he is not fighting one unit, but rather 2 units pretending to be one. The daggers overwhelm Guy and take the Blue Frame's head as a trophy. Loretta screams out to Guy as he passes out in the mobile suit. Tactic 16, Operation 14. Serpent Tail took Guy and the Blue Frame to Orb to help with his wounds. Lo happened to be at Orb at this time as well. The head and the backpack of Blue Frame was also damaged, which weren't a part of the upgrades that Orb were initially planning to do to the unit. Lo was renting out a hangar to make upgrades for Red Frame, but when he saw the damage of Blue Frame, he offered his services. Once Guy woke up, he claimed that he would fight Socius once again. Serpent Tail makes their way to Gibraltar, where Reed negotiates with Zaft. He was able to allow them to use their base facilities. Blue Frame, with its new repairs, is now referred to as Blue Frame 2nd, or Blue Frame 2nd L. We broke this down in the original Gundam Seed manga. 2 Long Daggers approach, and Guy rushes him. He has to use speed with these units. Guy closes the gap. He detaches his backpack while the Long Daggers purge their armor. Blueframe uses the Armor Schneider combat knife. While the long dagger slashes at Blueframe with the beam saber, Socius realizes that his knife has anti-beam coating, but it is too late to react as Guy tears through one of the long daggers. 5 minutes later, the battle was over with Guy the victor. He made sure not to damage the cockpits and kill the pilots of the long daggers. But because of this, Socius couldn't return to the Alliance. However, this was a blessing as it allowed Socius to learn the concept of freedom and living for oneself. These two will eventually come together on the battlefield again. Blue Cosmos units are heading towards Gibraltar. Guy says there's nothing more expensive than something free. Their deal to help the base in exchange for hangar use is turning out to be a bad deal for them. But Guy is all about honoring contracts. Guy's stitches from the previous battle with Socius began opening up. I don't know if I mentioned this during the breakdown, but the head sensors can remote control the backpack unit. Lo makes the best of things. Guy uses the Tactical Arms Gatlin Forum. Tactics 17, Operation 21. Lo meets with Jean Carey, a man with a similar history to that of Jesus Yamato, a coordinator who fought for the Alliance but soon fought to end war. He now wanders around with the Junk Guild. Lo wonders why he paints all his mobile suits white. He says that the Alliance never trusted him, so they gave him a white mobile suit. White stands out on the battlefield. It, however, allowed him to build a name for himself where the enemy ran away at the sight of white. This was a win for Jean, as it meant it had to fight less. This all changes when he is pushed into a position to fight, like in the Battle of Panama. After Alaska, the attack on Panama took place. Here, Jean Carey met the Zaft mobile suit Dual Gundam. The Long Dagger is a mass-produced variant of Dual Gundam, so they are similar. The pilot calls him a filthy natural, but he lets him know that he is actually a coordinator. He then calls him a traitor. The two begin close-range combat, but soon the gap widens. Jean had no expectations of coming out of this battle alive. He drops his Fortestra, which causes a flash of light. He rushes in and lasts for some time, but in the end, his mobile suit is destroyed by a blast. He awaits the final blow, but Duel just walks away. This is all a story being told by Jean to Lo. He says that it was a gun gear that destroyed his unit. These are explained in our Gundam Seed coverage, but they're essentially EMPs. Jean wishes to one day talk to the Dual Gundam pilot and ask why he didn't shoot that day. Tactics 18, Operation 17. The mass driver system at Panama was destroyed by the gun gears. The Gigafloat is lost somewhere in the ocean, leaving Orb and Victoria Base, which is currently under Zaft occupation. Rondo Gina Sahaku meets with Azrael to negotiate. In exchange for leaving Orb alone, he will help the Alliance retake Victoria Base. Rondo heads to Victoria Base in the Gold Frame. This is still base Gold Frame. It has the Blitz right arm, but the Amatsu upgrades haven't been completed yet. It is only at 70%, but the Mirage Colloid is functional. He was given a unit of 2 Sword Calamities and 2 Strike Daggers. 4 Socius pilots one of the Sword Calamities with Edward Harrelson piloting the other. Rondo doesn't order people. He just lets them do their thing. This is the battle that gave Edward the nickname Ed the Ripper. The battle was successful and the Alliance reclaimed Victoria. However, he is informed that Orb was destroyed by the Alliance. He doesn't hold a grudge against Blue Cosmos, as this allows him to rebuild Orb in his own image. He heads to the Ame no Mihashira and never returns to Earth. Tactics 19, Operation 16. Susie brought Guy a new job, but something doesn't seem right. He heads to the location to find Lo there. Something definitely isn't right. Lo came on behalf of the Junk Guild. Someone is trying to set them up. That is when Kenneth Lucchini comes on the comms. If you read Astray R, Kenneth has been monitoring Lo, but Lo doesn't know who he is. Blueframe unleashes the Tactical Arms sword form and begins fighting Redframe. Guy isn't controlling this. Redframe pulls out the Guerrera Strait. Lo 2 doesn't have any control. The two units are evenly matched. It seems like Kenneth is controlling the Astray's computers and sensors. They are also invisible, but on the battlefield. He must be using a virus. That is when Lo slices randomly at empty space, but almost hits Kenneth, revealing the Gel Finieto. The NMS X07PO Gel Finieto is the first mobile suit created by Action Industries. This mobile suit isn't anything to write home about, but it does have the Bacillus Weapon System binders. These are Mirage Colloid's shoulder binders, which transmit a computer virus, and isn't affected by neutron jammer interference. The virus allows the pilot to control nearby mobile suits. The Mirage Colloid helps keep the unit invisible. It has no other weapons and relies solely on hacking. Kenneth wonders how he is moving. Lo realizes that the binders on the mobile suit are probably producing the virus. Lo shut down the mobile suit and gave 8 full control. Kenneth didn't know about Lo's supercomputer in a suitcase. The gel Finetto tries to escape. The virus is no longer in effect and Blue Frame can move. He rushes towards the mobile suit and slices Gel Finetto in half. However, Guy saw Kenneth jumping out of the mobile suit. Guy isn't getting paid for this job, so he ain't going after him. Work for free? Hell no. Get out of here. As Red and Blue depart again, Guy wonders what an informant wants with Lo. Tactics 20, Operation 15. After the destruction of Orb, its spirit lives on in the Kusanagi. However, there is also another place in Orb's territory. This is Aminami Hashira. It was originally supposed to be an orbital elevator, but was halted when the war started. However, it has a huge factory and hangar, which makes it a great place to build. Rondo launches in the complete gold frame Amatsu. The Sahakus are a part of the 5 noble clans of Orb. Though he believes that Uzumi's actions were wrong, he is working another deal with the Alliance to attack Zaft. Though he plans on taking out the Alliance as well, he just has to feign ignorance for now. He tests out the Magano Ikitachi Energy Absorption Blade. This can ideally be able to deactivate the illegal nuclear reactor based on Gundams, making this unit superior for its time. While this is happening, Guy was watching in the distance. Etika Simmons of Orb asks Guy to keep an eye on Rondo. Suddenly, Red Frame makes its appearance. All 3 Astrays together once again, as though fate is pulling them together. Guy likes it when Lo is around. This dude defies expectations. Every time he's around, shit starts to happen. Lo uses the Gerbera straight and slices down, but Goldframe grabs the giant sword with ease and snaps it into 2 pieces. Guy throws his tactical arms sword form at Lo. Since this was originally made for the Red Frame, Guy assumed he knew how to use it. The Red Frame is able to slice down at Rondo, greatly damaging Goldframe. Lo flies away, but Goldframe tries to shoot Lo in the back. Guy comes in with the Schneider knife, destroying the cockpit and taking out Rondo. Lo never even knew that Guy finished the job. Tactics 21, Operation 24. Zaft and the Alliance are engaging in battle. In a Jin, high maneuver type is Mikhail Coast. Remember, Mikhail used to go by the name The Doctor. Being a doctor as well, he looks at his enemies as cancer that must be eliminated. He runs into Blue Frame on the battlefield. This is the same mobile suit he met at the asteroid Nova from a few episodes back. Mikhail begins chasing the mobile suit. They head into a colony. The Jin is trying to keep up with Blue Frame, but the Blue Frame traps the Jin in a net. Standing in front of the trapped mobile suit is Guy in his Gatling form. He tells Mikhail to get out of the mobile suit. Elijah is amazed it worked. The Alliance lagged behind Zaft when it came to speed and maneuverability. Because of this, they hired Serpentail to capture one of their Jins. They load the Jin onto a civilian ship. As they leave the colony, Elijah yells out. A red mobile suit approaches them with the swiftness. It is Ed the Ripper and Sword Calamity. If you haven't noticed, this is the chapter that they base the Gundam Astray Blue Frame short OVA on. The 2 mobile suits begin clashing. No one knows what happened that day between the 2 mobile suits. Tactics 22, Operations 25. At the Eurasian Federation's space fortress, Artemis, Commander Garcia is furious. He is being chewed out by the Eurasian Federation higher-ups because of the events of Gundam Seed X Astray happened. Task Force X has now been disbanded, and Kennard Pars is now a deserter. Garcia wants Kennard to be held accountable for his crimes. Their in-jammer cancelers on Hyperion Gundam became useless as they acquired their own in-jammer cancelers. So Task Force X was no use to them anymore. Aw, it truly was a suicide squad. Garcia is going to find someone to throw under the bus. That person is Guy and Serpentail. They make their return to Artemis. The first time Guy visited, he was hired to defend Artemis. We see these events in Astray, and Astray R, I think. The second, they were hired to protect Garcia from pirates, which we saw as a side story to Astray R, along with the beginning of this novel. The Astray series is what it's like reading a Marvel or DC comic. Okay, if you want to know Lo's story, you have to read Astray and Astray R, but you can't forget the side stories in B. It's exhausting. A mobile suit begins attacking him. He's being attacked by Hyperion Unit 3. The Cat 1 X3 Hyperion Gundam Unit 3 looks similar to Unit 2, but this version has the Armure Lumiere monophase shield, the same tech found on Artemis. The shield barrier doesn't last long, but can generate smaller Armure Lumieres mounted on each hand, which last much longer. Other weapons include multi-barrel Sea-Wiz, the Rom Technica beam knife, a beam submachine gun, and the 4 Fonterie beam cannon. The beam grazes Blue Frame. On the comms come Garcia. He says that he orders him to die here and now. He is going to pin the theft of Unit 1 on Guy. Garcia tells the Hyperion pilot to kill him. Guy plunges his sword at the Gundam, but it is blocked by the Armure Lumiere. During his battle with Unit 1 and Kennard, he was able to get through Armure Lumiere. His sword has the Armor Schneider anti-beam coating. Once he gets inside, he transforms the sword into Gatling mode. The Armure Lumiere is a double-edged sword. It is hard to get in, but once penetrated, it overloads and blows up while protecting the enemy. Unit 3 is destroyed. Guy sets his eyes on Artemis and begins penetrating the Armure Lumiere. Tactics 23, Operation 22. The Kusanagi is the last of what remains of Orb, at which point this meaning is kind of deflated when you know Rondo is up at Amino Mihashira. Lo and the Junk Guild has kept in contact with this ship while helping the Kusanagi resupply. Lo notices something strange in the distance. The mobile suit that he sees is called Rouge. He saw this unit back at Orb, but this one is different. This Rouge has the IWSP pack. The MF-02 plus P202QX Strike Rouge IWSP equips the Integrated Weapons Striker pack designed for Kigali. This gives the unit atmospheric reentry capabilities. The IWSP originally was created by the PMP company, which was bought out by Morgenrot. Weapons include 75mm Sea Whiz, the Armor Schneider combat knife, a 105mm cannon, a 115mm railgun, a high-energy beam rifle, and a combined shield. Lo thinks this is kind of reckless. The pilot doesn't seem to be handling the extra weapons well. Most of the time, people wouldn't be able to utilize these weapons without an insane amount of skills. Just another way the story is reminding us that Kira is the specialist of boys. With Rouge are M1 Astrays. Lo could tell by their movements that it is Kino and Kikuchi. These are new Astray girls that aren't Asagi, Yuri, or Mayuda. It's like how the Shrike team had 5 girls, and then all of a sudden 3 more came, and then we saw 3 more in Crossbone Gundam. Where did they come from? I don't know, but I'll take a few more. In the end, the IWSP pack wasn't used on the strike, and rather they opted for the L strike equipment, which wouldn't be utilized until Yakindwe. This would become a symbol of Orb's reconstruction with the help of its pilot Kigali. Tactics 24, Operation 23. Reed Weller was a former Alliance officer who was kicked out, insinuating that he was drunk. However, he was loved, so they always brought jobs for him and Serpent Tail. They're tasked with overseeing a deal with a mobile suit while investigating Endjammer cancelers. But Reed is drinking while watching the battle take place on security cameras. The Alliance's Peacekeeper force were closing in on Boaz. This is the fleet of Mobiuses. Mobii? The ones carrying the nukes. The Alliance has been trying to reclaim their former asteroid base, but they haven't been able to penetrate it. So they decide to go with the nuke option. Helping transport nukes to Boaz is Moonlight Mad Dog Morgan, piloting his gun barrel dagger. This is a 105 dagger with the gun barrel striker pack. This mobile suit was originally going to go to Mulaflaga before they abandoned the Alliance and formed the 3 Ships Alliance. So now it is Morgan's. He uses the gun barrels and attacks Zaf to clear a path for the nukes. He needs a reload. Luckily, the gun barrel striker pack can operate independently like a Mobius Zero. They launch a new pack and it attaches to the 105 dagger. He spots a Gen high maneuver type taking out some daggers and he rushes in. It didn't take too long for this battle to end in utter destruction once the nukes were launched. Reed was watching the battle on the monitors. He would like to give credit to Morgan, but it is clear the Alliance crossing the line and using nukes is what ended this battle swiftly. Tactics 25, Operation Final. This is the final chapter in the original publishing. There is a satellite factory ran by a civilian company. In reality, this is run by Azrael Conglomerate and functions like a military base which helps develop Blue Cosmos prototypes. Saying the defenses are strong here is an understatement. Guarding the satellite is the mobile armor Progrande. We broke this down in Gundam Seed Destiny Astray, but these have a Dragoon system and are huge. Guy has been called in to take care of this thing. Reed thinks they are going to get themselves killed. The odds are against them, so he is confused as to why he took on the job. He is also drunk. That isn't fair. Reed is probably the most functional alcoholic in all of Cosmic Era. Guy didn't say a word, which wasn't a good sign. He then speaks up and says that they will have to fight sooner or later anyways. They are going to have to take out the enemy before it completely powers up. The Progrande also has an Endjammer canceller. He says that the pilot is modified. Guy says not to question it. We will later learn that this is powered by 3 people's brainwaves. Guy thinks he has a plan. They have to wait for the new mobile suit upgrades and then they will head out. Guy approaches the mobile armor. He is in the Blue Frame's second L. There's apparently a difference between Blue Frame's second and second L, and that difference is the Lohengrin Positron Cannon. The Progrande unleashes its 3 Dragoons onto Guy. He relates this to the Dreadnought Gundam's wrist beam reamers and thinks he can handle this. Guy switches to the Lohengrin loadout. He uses the enemy's Endjammer canceller against them. With the range of the unit, the Endjammer canceller works. He leads the Dragoons into its own Endjammer canceller. Seems like a design flaw. While in close range, Guy fires the Lohengrin, taking out the mobile armor and the satellite all in one shot. His mission is complete. Guy returns to his comrades. Tactics 26, Operation 8. The battles between Naturals and Coordinators came to an end, but after the war there is a lot of cleanup, which is a job for Serpent Tail. Also, this takes place after the war. but how long is uncertain. We do, however, know that the events of Versus Astray played out in between most of what we see in this light novel and this end chapter. An elderly man has a job for him. He says he wants him to go to the sun. Why would there be anything near the sun? Guy wonders. The man shows him a photo. Guy goes, "Is that a turret?" It is indeed a turret, and the elderly man wants him to take it out. He will provide the necessary equipment for him. Guy accepts the job. He looks at his new Blue Frame 4th, the MBF PO3 Gundam Astray Blue Frame 4th, also known as the Full Armor Phase Shift Blue Frame. Utilizes the Full Armor Phase System, or FAP. Do I have to call it that? It has a high-speed mobile mode and a full armor mode. The full armor protects it from the sun, while the high-speed mode helps it exit the sun's gravitational pull. During this time, the applicative gel is applied, but vaporizes quickly. High-speed mode can't be exposed for too long. This is built off of the Blue Frame's second revise and has transphase armor as well. Weapons include a laser cannon, an Armor Schneider combat knife, and a large Vulcan gun. Blue Frame's second revise debuts in Versus Astray, which gives us some understanding of the time gap, but not too much. Also, this is translated to a modified version of the second, but it is indeed the fourth. Guy is mad that the unit is gray when not in use. Remember, the phase shift armor changes the unit's color, and when not turned on, they all look gray. The sun kept pulling him in. The pressures are insane. His sensors also has many filters, as it just blares white light into the cameras and infrared. The ablative gel is evaporating quickly. He approaches the corona, which is the outer layer of the sun, which is mainly made up of gas. If the gas flares out and touches Blue Frame, he will be instantly vaporized. Finally, he found the turret. He takes aim and fires, but he doesn't have a visual. Guy transforms into his high-speed mode and accelerates out of the sun's gravitational pull. While leaving, his sensors were able to pick up an explosion of the turret. His mission is complete. He heads back to the Earth sphere. And that will conclude Mobile Suit Gundam Astray B. I am a little disappointed that Guy's personal story was still full of Lo. I know they show up in each other's story, but it feels like Lo got more character growth in Astray R than Guy did in Astray B. Nonetheless, it still fills in the gaps of the Astrayverse. Thanks to Logan and his team for the translation. Check out his Astray work. This took so long that we already covered X Astray, Destiny Astray, and Frame Astray. Next, we will move forward in the Astrayverse and cover Gundam Seed versus Astray. But that will do it for now, coordinators. Remember, don't drink and pilot a ship. Reed makes it look easy, but it's not. Peace.